Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Facebook Live. I think it's been a while for us, so we're excited to be here. I'm Claire, the Advocacy and Outreach Specialist, for those of you who don't know me, and
Clark Rockfall, Director of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs for ACB. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this very special and kind of impromptu occasion. We've got some big news, don't we, Claire?
We do have really big news, and like Clark said, it's kind of impromptu because we didn't know when the news was going to come. We've been watching and waiting eagerly, but the Supreme Court, spoiler alert, works on their own time. So today we just found out whether or not a case we've been following was going to be taken up by the Supreme Court, and it was not. The Supreme Court has denied the petition from Domino's, and so the Domino's v. Robles case will not go before the Supreme Court.
So yay, Claire, the Supreme Court ruled in our favor. Is that what happened?
That is not what happened.
Oh.
I guess you could say they ruled in our favor in the sense that our favor, can you say that? Was not to go before the Supreme Court. So because of that, it is not going before the Supreme Court. But legally, because it's not going before the Supreme Court, technically we could have another very similar case come up through the court system and try to go before the Supreme Court in the future. So it's a great win for us now, but it could technically come again.
So let's back up for a second, Claire. So what actually happened? So Domino's v. Robles was a case about ACB member Guillermo Robles and pizza.
And pizza.
He really wanted a pizza.
Really wanted pizza.
But he couldn't get that pizza because Domino's website is inaccessible to screen readers.
Exactly.
So they went to court.
Yep.
They went to the the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit on the West Coast. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled unanimously 3-0 in Guillermo Robles' favor, saying that Domino's is in the wrong, their website is inaccessible. According to the ADA, they need to make it accessible.
And this is really big because there's a lot of argument out there of whether websites or other forms of technology should be accessible under the ADA, because the ADA, Clark, was passed in what year?
Oh, 29 years ago.
Good. I thought you were going to say 29. I was going to say no. So it was passed in 1990. And I bring that up because websites were not what they are today. And so there's a lot of debate of whether websites fall under the ADA because they just weren't what they are today. Now, arguably, most of us would say, come on, the point of the ADA was to make things accessible. So of course they fall under the ADA. But that's not what a lot of people have been arguing legally in the courts. So that's why this is so important of a case to say the Ninth Circuit said, yes, websites like the Domino's website do fall under the ADA, and Domino's has to make their website accessible.
So Domino's didn't like that answer from the Ninth Circuit, so they appealed to the Supreme Court. So what action did the Supreme Court take?
So just to throw the fun legal Latin words in there, when you want to bring a case before the Supreme Court, you file a petition, and in order to go before the Supreme Court justices have to decide whether or not they want to take it up, and if you are selected, you get what we call a writ of certiorari. And so we've been waiting eagerly to find out if that writ was granted, and that's what we just found out today, that writ was not granted. Yeah,
so in terms that I can understand, basically the Supreme Court told Domino's, no, we're not hearing your appeal.
Exactly. So again, the Supreme Court is not saying, yes, the ADA applies to websites, or it could be the other way technically. No, they said nothing. They just said, we're not going to hear your case.
But by not hearing the Domino's case, the decision of the Ninth Circuit
stands. Woohoo!
And included in the Ninth Circuit is a very large part of the United
I thought you were going to ask me to name all of them.
Not all of them, just the one really big one.
The one really important one, because I am from there, is California.
Yes.
But it also includes, Washington State, Montana, et cetera, so a lot of the West.
Yeah. Cool. So, where do we go from here, Claire?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, we're going to continue to watch these issues because, again, even though this is a huge win for us, and I'm very excited, like we said, in the future, it could always come back through a different circuit court. So we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears open for what happens in other circuits, because it is what we consider a split issue, meaning some of the circuit courts have said yes, it applies, and some have said no. So it's still a split issue, so we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears open. But I think for today, we'll have a little bit of a celebration.
Yeah, and as all of you out there know, there are still websites out there that are inaccessible, whether that's for entertainment, for food ordering, hotels, transportation. You all share a lot of them with us, and we try to do our best to reach out to those entities. Important things to remember that, yes, although the ADA was passed in 1990, internet pioneers and World Wide Web visionaries as early as 1994 were talking about the need for digital accessibility. And the first website guidelines for accessibility were actually created by a university professor, Greg Vanderheiden, in 1995. So since then, the World Wide Web Consortium has created the Website Content Accessibility Guidelines.
WCAG.
Yep, these guidelines have been incorporated into the federal government's 508 standards for federal government websites and online systems, as well as those of their contractors. So it's not like this is a new thing. It's not like Domino's didn't get any notice here and they were just slapped with a demand letter out of the blue. No, they've had plenty of time to make an accessible website. They've just chosen not to.
In fact, even though the U.S. government hasn't officially adopted WCAG for non-federal issues, they've basically implied and referenced WCAG standards in a lot of court rulings. So just through precedent, we can point to a lot of court rulings and say, look, the court has even pointed to WCAG. So that's a pretty compelling argument to say. The courts are starting to point to it and say, this applies everywhere. So.
And why wouldn't these companies want to reach all customers?
Yeah,
right?
I'm no business person. I didn't go to business school, but I would think the more customers, the more money you make.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
So.
Guillermo Robles was literally saying, I want to give you money.
Exactly.
And they said, no, we don't want money from people like you.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. That's a civil rights violation.
Yes.
And no bueno.
So, yeah.
All right. So this issue, as Claire was saying, is not over, though. This is a great win. There will still be other cases in the future. There are still members of Congress who are introducing ADA reform legislation. ADA, as they would phrase it, improvements.
Improvements, yeah.
Yes. And some of these improvements would require 120 days that someone would have to wait before they could bring a demand letter against a company. Not sure who that's an improvement for. We've been waiting 29 years. Why do we need to wait another 4 months?
Yep.
Exactly. So these issues keep bubbling up, and they will continue to. But this case, and to fight back against pieces of legislation like that, it just proves the importance of advocacy.
Exactly.
Not just on the national level by ACB and other organizations, but of all of our members, all the other Guillermo Robles out there in Facebook Live land.
Exactly. And that we're talking about the federal level, but states always have the right to create their own state laws, so keep an ear out for those too. That's important to know what they're doing in your own local communities, so it's important.
Well, great. I think that about does it.
I think it does, yeah. So
everyone, take a great victory lap today. We've all earned it, so thank you everyone for the advocacy work that you continue to do.
Definitely.
If you want to learn more about our advocacy work, always follow us here at Facebook, but also listen to the Advocacy Update podcast, available on ACB Radio and all your favorite podcast players. And you can always learn more at www.acb.org.
And if you're having any website issues, we definitely want to hear about them, so let us know, please.
And let us know at advocacy@acb.org, or just in the comments to this video.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everybody.